Yo, what's up guys, it's King Sean here, and in today's video, I'll be talking about T. Higgins getting the franchise tag from the Cincinnati Bengals and how that affects the Commanders' plans to get receiver to this offseason. And I'll also be talking about a receiver that they could be looking to target if this receiver were to become available. So, if you guys are new to my channel, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not already subbed up, and turn on notifications. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into today's video. Alright, so it was reported yesterday that T. Higgins will be receiving the franchise tag from the Bengals, and I'm not too surprised. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was extension or let him walk, but I'm not too surprised that they decided to franchise tag him because it gives them more time to figure out a long-term extension with him. And unlike last year where they applied the franchise tag to him and they just expected him to take it, play on the franchise tag, which he was trying to hold out for a little bit, but then just decided to sign the franchise tag tender, right? So they're going to franchise tag him this year with the thought of extending him, right? Last year, they had no idea, no business of extending him. They didn't even have real contract talks with him and his agent. But this year, T. Higgins, he got a new agent before the season ended, and now the Bengals and him actually want to get an extension done. It sucks that T. Higgins is off the board now, right? He was the top, obviously, receiver free agent, and maybe this could be a situation where the Bengals tag him, aren't able to get a long-term deal done with him, and decide to trade him for like a third-round pick, right? So we'll see if that happens, but it's pretty likely that they do end up extending him, re-signing him to a long-term deal, right? But we'll see, though. We'll see what ultimately happens, right? Like, they got to pay Chase, Hendrickson, and Higgins, which they do attempt to get done. Well, they will attempt to get done, right? But will they actually do it? I'm not sure. We'll see, because all three of those guys combined going to cost them a whole lot of money. Now, how does this move affect our Washington Commanders? Obviously, the top receiver option in free agency, the top receiver option in general, the top realistic receiver option in general is off the board. So that does hurt us a little bit, but there still are other options out there, right? And we do have to turn our minds, our focus towards those options now that T. Higgins is off the board. I'm not gonna lie, Joe Burrow, he was doing a little tour at Radio Row saying that he would do anything it took in order to bring back Chase, Hendrickson, and T. Higgins. He would restructure his contract, just whatever it takes to bring back those three guys. And it seems like the Bengals may get something done, and a part of that may be because of Joe Burrow, right? And also the franchise tag wasn't super expensive, $26 million, right? That's pretty much nothing nowadays, right? I mean, it's not nothing, but that's not a whole lot for a receiver nowadays, right? So that's not bad. They're willing to put him on that franchise tag, so that's not a bad franchise tag number at all, right? So they were comfortable with franchise tagging T. Higgins again. But back to how this affects the Commanders. Obviously, one less option at receiver, but there's other options as well, right? May not be options we love, right? Cooper Kupp, don't love him. Deebo Samuel, don't love him. Honestly, I think I'm kind of warming up to choosing Deebo Samuel over Cooper Kupp, because a couple of videos before I did say that I'd take Cooper Kupp over Deebo, but thinking about it more, Cooper Kupp, he's about to turn 32 this summer. He's dealt with several injuries in the past, and same with Deebo Samuel. However, he has played in more games than Cooper Kupp, right? So he stayed more healthy than Cooper Kupp, and Deebo is younger. He's only 29 years old, so I think at this point I would probably entertain Deebo more than Cooper Kupp. You also have other guys in free agency like Chris Godwin, Darius Slayton. There's guys like Amari Cooper and Stephon Diggs who I'm not too interested in, but if you decide to go that route, then you could get them, right? So there's definitely other options. Obviously not as great of options as T. Higgins. Like, my top option at this point is probably Chris Godwin, who is coming off of injury, right? A season-ending dislocated ankle injury, which could be a bit of a concern for you. However, I'm not very concerned. Like, he suffered a torn ACL at the end of the 2021 season and was back for the start of the 2022 season. So I think Chris Godwin should be fine by training camp or maybe even OTAs, right? So I think he should be good, but there's definitely some other options out there that I am pretty confident that we will obviously entertain. And one receiver option that we may consider is Christian Kirk. So every offseason, as y'all know, there are a bunch of cap casualties. A bunch of guys get released to clear up some cap space. And one guy that might get released or traded is Christian Kirk, Jaguars wide receiver. So in his 3 years with the Jags, he's actually been pretty solid for them. In 2022, which was his first year, he put up over 1,100 yards on top of 8 touchdowns. So that's really good right there. And he caught 84 passes in 2022 right there. So that's good. In the following year, didn't play in all 17 games, only played in 12, but he did put up 787 yards on 57 catches along with 3 touchdowns. That's really good. Now, this past season was his worst year with the Jaguars. However, that's because he did suffer a season-ending injury, and it was a shoulder injury, a season-ending shoulder injury. And the Jaguars were actually preparing to trade him to the Steelers, or just trading him at the deadline, right? The Steelers, I know, were very interested in him, and they may have traded for him if he did not suffer that season-ending shoulder injury, because y'all know the Steelers needed receiver help, and they still do need receiver help, right? So they may be a team that, if Kirk becomes available, whether that's via trade or he gets released, I expect them to be highly interested in him, right? But I also expect us to be interested in him, because with the Jaguars, he put up pretty solid numbers. And also, the team he was with before the Jaguars are the Cardinals. And guess who was his head coach? Cliff Kingsbury, our current offensive coordinator. So Cliff Kingsbury, he loves Christian Kirk. He spoke highly of Kirk while he was with Arizona. And that's a guy that I could definitely see AP in the front office pairing him up with. Christian Kirk, he'd be a really nice slot option. He has proved to be a pretty solid receiver too in the league. However, because of the shoulder injury, because of, injuries in the past, he may be a good receiver 3 option as well. Actually, I think he'd be a really good wide receiver 3 option for sure. And he'd be cheap. If you were to trade for him, you'd only need to trade like a day 3 pick for him. And if you were to sign him, well, I don't think he'd be very expensive. Maybe like $8 to $10 million a year. Because I know back in 2022 when the Jaguars signed him, everybody went crazy over his contract. Like, it kind of broke the receiver market, right? Like, Christian Kirk making that much money, that's crazy, bro. But, looking back, the contract really wasn't that bad. If you looked in, like, the logistics of it, like the whole contract in detail, it really wasn't that bad, right? Christian Kirk, I feel like, would be a pretty solid receiver 3 option, maybe a receiver 2, but preferably for me, wide receiver 3. I think it could be a really good slot option. He can make do after the catch. He put up solid numbers in his first year with Jacksonville and solid numbers in his last year with Arizona, which was back in 2021, right? So I think he could be a very good number 3 option for Jaden Daniels, and he'd be another good receiver to add along with Terry McLaurin. And you wouldn't stop there. You would also maybe go after another receiver via trade or free agency or even the draft, right? But Christian Kirk, he's definitely a guy I would be interested in adding into the receiver room. And the Jags may decide to keep Christian Kirk, right? So that's one thing to put in your mind. It was a regime that's gone now that wanted him gone at the trade deadline. So Liam Cohen, the new GM, whoever they hire, may feel like he would be a fit in their offense, right? And if they feel like that, they may decide to restructure his deal, which would free up cap space for them. And instead of cutting him, just restructure his deal, and they will free up cap space, and they'd be able to keep him, right? So we'll see what the Jags decide to do. However, if they were to make him available via trade or cut him, I'd definitely be interested in bringing in a guy like Christian Kirk. So that is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, T. Higgins, he is seemingly off the table with the Bengals preparing to franchise tag him. It'll cost $26 million to franchise tag him, which is pretty much not a lot of money, right? We'll see if they are able to figure out a long-term deal with him. If not, then I would definitely look out for the Bengals trying to trade him, because, franchise tagging him and then trading him, that wouldn't be a bad option for the Bengals, right? If they were to just let him walk in free agency, they would be getting a compensatory 3rd-round pick the following year. So why not just get that 3rd-round pick this year if you are not able to figure out a long-term deal with him, right? So we'll see what they end up doing with T. Higgins. And then comment down below whether or not you would be interested in Christian Kirk. Leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're not already subbed up. We hit 5,000 subscribers the other day, so thanks to each and every one of y'all who support the channel, who sub up, man, because without y'all, this channel would pretty much be nothing. So appreciate y'all once again, and make sure to turn on notifications. So other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.